This is Aaron Levine, LG Insurance Agency, hanging out on another episode of the Who You Work With Matters podcast. I've got a who, we can call him a who in my life, Jeremy Grunin from the Grunin Foundation. I'm happy to have him here. Jeremy is well known in this Monmouth and Ocean County area for all of the charitable efforts by the foundation and himself. You sit on more boards than I can ever even remember. And I can't wait to dive deep into what inspires you to do the work that you do and learn a little bit more about how you got there. And we're not doing this over drinks or steak. And James isn't going to come in and touch you again. And we'll keep that as an inside joke for now. So Jeremy, thanks so much for coming to the studio today.
Oh, Aaron, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great. So tell me a little bit about, the foundation and how the foundation started. And then I want to get into, what you're up to today.
Yeah. So the Grunin Foundation is a place-based foundation, which means we focus our work in Monmouth and Ocean counties. And we're a family foundation, private family foundation, which means that we don't take outside investment from anyone. This is a family kind of, frankly, my parents' money,
right?
That did very well in Monmouth and Ocean County for a long time as attorneys, and then invested very smartly. And now we have the opportunity to give back to our communities. So we focus on holistic support, financial support, as well as collective impact.
Okay.
For specifically helping folks that have challenges around economic mobility. Those challenges could be for a number of reasons, whether it's because of hurdles that have been put in front of them by neurodiversity, by age, by socioeconomic circumstance, by gender, by race, whatever it may be. There are lots of folks in our communities that don't necessarily have the ability to have all the things that some of us are so blessed to have, and so we do our best to help them through financial support, but also through connectivity and through working with other organizations throughout the state.
You take that to a whole nother level, right? We'll go back into time. We first met when you were chairing the board of Fulfill, the food bank of Monmouth and Ocean counties. And I was a board member. And so I looked up to you then. I still look up to you today. And that's when I started first learn and understand who you are as a person, because forgetting the foundation, you personally donate a tremendous amount of your time for this collective impact to make sure that the work is being done across platform and that you are able to bring organizations together to better their resources and to continue to make each other better together, right? So what inspired you to say, okay, I want to spend my time, giving my time, because clearly there's enough money for you to go play a lot. Where did it come into your system, into your body, into your personal need to be the one to give back your time into all of these organizations?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for saying that you looked up to me, because the truth is, I got involved even with that organization because your aunt, Rena Levy, was very involved and is an icon throughout our communities with the windmills she's the kind of person that inspired me to want to do more work.
Love that.
That being said, I will say that my parents always had a vision of wanting to give back. They were, they grew up. My dad was born in Brooklyn. My mom was born in Long Branch.
Okay.
But they did not come from, they came from modest means, maybe less than modest means. We're very blessed that they got great educations and then were able to go through law school. But they always knew that they wanted to be able to give back to the communities that they serve. When we look at an issue, for example, like food insecurity, right, and organizations here throughout Monmouth and Ocean County, like Fulfill, like Lunch Break, like Ocean County Meals on Wheels, just to name a few, food insecurity is an issue that is impacted by so many other variables and factors, right? So if you're food insecure, there are probably educational barriers. Mm-hmm. There are probably barriers to transportation, right? There may be barriers around disabilities. right? There are barriers around, single parent families or families that are having to work multiple jobs and don't necessarily have the ability to support a family in the right way. And what you learn is so many folks that are food insecure are not kind of what some of us may have grown up thinking are just folks that aren't working that hard, or folks that aren't like able to, that are just like trying to take advantage of the system.
It's not a just go get a job.
No, many of them are working a ton,
Right.
but aren't making the necessary money to make ends meet every week. I don't know if I'm sure you know better than anyone. We all know we have kids here in our communities. It's expensive,
Sure.
right? And we're blessed that we have the ability to earn. Not everyone has that same ability, and so working with Fulfill, it kind of teaches you that there are so many nonprofits that kind of intersect. And the work really is all part of a fabric of an ecosystem. And so we work to try and build those connections, and get the folks who are closest proximity to the issues and the folks that they serve to be able to deliver the solutions they need to deliver to make lives better.
So what inspired you to get involved? Or was it just connecting with nonprofit after nonprofit and learning the inner workings of each and taking it to a government level and being able to bring things to government officials and bring things to the state legislature and start putting people together, right? It's all about the who's. Everything, the podcast is Who You Work With Matters. We talk about who's. There are so many who's intertwined within the nonprofit community, and we talk about food insecurity both at the Fulfill level, and Fulfill supports how many other hundreds of nonprofits that are then distributing food at the much smaller local level at church pantries, school pantries, after school programs, and really supporting so many more programs and nonprofits. So, what inspired you to take this whole thing to another level?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'll start for myself, going back to 2008. Which I can't believe that's 17 years ago now. But 2008, at the time, I was working in retail. I was a general manager for a company called CompUSA.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was doing really, really well.
I want to see your employee photo, please.
Yeah, listen,
I will pay for that one.
My dad jokes with me sometimes because he says, I worked almost 20 years in retail, and then I ran health clubs for New York Sports Club. I ran 40 clubs for New York Sports Club. But I worked for...
So you're a fitness model. The before
Here
picture.
I am, the before picture. Here's the after picture. I worked for CompUSA, Nobody Beats the Wiz, Computer City, Electronics Expo, Toys R Us, Borders Books.
So you're just a giant dork.
So my dad says, I was always really good at helping companies go out of business and give money away. So why don't we do this professionally, right? Why don't we actually work on giving money away and doing good for the community?
I love that.
But the reality is, in 2008, I had a wife and three little kids at home and was doing really well. And then, frankly, the recession hit. The bottom dropped out. My bonus structure got cut almost 100%. And next thing you know, in 2008, I'm literally throwing papers for the New York Star Ledger in Old Bridge. Like, I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning and rolling papers and throwing them in the back of my car and driving through neighborhoods, avoiding deer in front of people's into people's houses.
That's when there was a newspaper.
Yeah, there was. That's right. That's how long ago that was.
I saw on somebody's driveway the other morning the Asbury Park Press. I think it was 2 sheets of paper.
Yeah, what? Who still does that? Who wants the newspaper ink? But that it helps you realize that it could happen to anyone. Right. You can end up in that situation. So it starts there. And then where it goes is, I'm very blessed to be able to sit on currently 16 nonprofit boards throughout the state. And they range from a small board like Monmouth Museum up to a really large board like the Count Basie Center for the Arts or the YMCA of the Jersey Shore. I'm also able to sit on the State Arts Council and a past chair of the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits and on the board of the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers. But you start to see that
Thank God you can rattle all those off.
You start to see that each of these things has an impact on everything else.
Okay.
And then you start to realize that as much as we can do in philanthropy and as much as we can do in nonprofits, we can't make the same kind of impact that our legislators can make by signing one bill,
Right.
right? Whether it's a federal bill, or a state budget, these things have such a profound impact on the work we do. And so to think that you can do any of this work in a vacuum, you
Right.
can't, right? Because ultimately, it has to be about building partnerships, and it has to be about working together,
Right.
or else and that's the very nature of capitalism and democracy, really. So that's where we go.
So not to talk politics, because I don't want to go there, because I'll just fall asleep and you're just going to go for the next 2 hours. But there's all this talk about this, quote unquote, the big beautiful bill,
Yeah.
and cuts to funding on a lot of significant programs. So, touch on that a little bit about what you're seeing and how that might affect certain organizations here in New Jersey and Monmouth County.
Yeah. I mean, look, and again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but you can talk, you can look at what the Congressional Budget Office says, and you can measure the impact of a bill 100 different ways, right?
Okay.
In the same way that we can measure success of at a company or
Sure.
of a stock or anything. The truth is, we don't really know.
Okay.
What we do know is that Medicaid is going to be cut to a large extent, that SNAP benefits and food security is going to be cut. Programs like 21st Century Funding, which funds after-school programs for historically under-resourced kids, is being cut. These programs are going away. And so that impacts nonprofits. But at the end of the day, it's not about the nonprofits. It's about the folks that they serve.
Got it.
Right? So I don't know that we can know the full kind of the full gamut of what the effects will be. I hope, I'll take a conservative stance for a second and say, I hope that it propels business to be able to do better and to be able to offer higher wages and grow more jobs and bring more folks back to America and doing all those great things. And that's obviously what one side of the aisle thinks.
Right.
The other side of the aisle says, we need to raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour. So that's why I work in nonprofits, because I can't get into politics because I don't know the answer, and whoever does, God bless them.
Does anybody know the answer? Right?
I don't think so.
That's what it comes down to.
We all just keep taking shots at it, right?
I'm like, I need to keep my head down, stay in my bubble, and go to work. But I love to be able to expand my network and learn just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? I like to know enough about what's going on in different spaces. But at the end, I want to stay in my bubble. I want to go to work. I want to do what I'm really good at, and that's obviously I'm better at podcasting and shooting YouTube videos than I am at selling insurance nowadays. But the insurance is what still pays the bills, and I still have to be really good in that space and continue to grow and build my networks and everything that I do. So when it comes to network building, and I've used nonprofit in the past to build and grow networks, and there's a lot of people out there in the professional space that would love to be able to do that, but don't know how to get started. Yeah. So how does somebody get started by joining a board? How do they get involved with any particular nonprofit? Like what goes into that?
Yeah, and so I'm going to give the what I think is the WIFM answer, right? The what's in it for me answer. Before I came home to work with my family and do this kind of professionally, I say kind of professionally because that's still, the jury's still out. I was involved in a couple of nonprofit boards when I was working professionally. Because I thought, it was a great way to give back to community. It was a great way to meet different people. And I thought it was also a great conversation starter and a great way to to show that you're civic minded and that you care about your community. The first thing I typically ask folks when they say they want to get involved is I ask them what resonates with them. If you're not an animal person, you're not joining the board of the SPCA, right? If you really don't like kids, you probably shouldn't be on the Boys and Girls Club board, right? So it has to start with do you care about the elderly? Do you care about veterans? Do you care what is it? Do children with autism is that something that really resonates with you and makes you want to do something about it? And if it is, then the first thing I would say is let's figure out how you can volunteer. And volunteering takes a lot of different forms, whether it's volunteering kind of hands-on, like filling a box for a food pantry, or volunteering could be part of a committee helping to do a gala or to do some kind of a golf outing or something. And when you start to volunteer in those kind of ways, you start to understand the organization and get to know it better. And then when you feel like you really know that organization, then you may say, hey, you know what? Now I think I want to be part of the vision making, of the decision making. I want to support financially. And that's really the best way to do it. What I think is the worst way to do it is when your boss says to you, you need to join this board, and you get voluntold into doing something, because those folks never do well on a board.
Those folks never do well
It's
on a
never
board.
good.
But there's a need sometimes,
Yeah.
which is, a strange paradox, but, those people sit on the board because the boss doesn't want to do it themselves.
Yes.
But they still want to write the check and be able to have a voice when
I get
necessary.
it. I get it. And I also get, listen.
You get that on every aspect.
Utility
of
companies, banks, investment firms, everybody, and insurance. We all want to be in community. We want to be civic minded, and we want our folks to be out there and to be representing. And I think that's super, super important. But I think it's also, there is a little bit of work to do to make sure that you're putting folks in a place where they're going to succeed.
Right.
In the same way that, if you're hiring someone, you're not hiring someone to go sell who doesn't like talking to people, right? So I mean, that doesn't work.
Right. It's like, talk about the 3 T's, right? Time, talent, treasure.
Sure.
You have to have at least one of those.
Yes.
If you're going to be on a board, or
Yes.
go volunteer. If you're volunteering, you just need to have the time
For
to
sure.
go do something, or you're talented enough, to be able to provide a service that the nonprofit needs. And there's always that need, especially for accountants, are always in high demand.
Oh yeah. every board wants an accountant. Every board wants a lawyer, right? We need, especially in these ever-changing worlds of executive orders and these ever-changing world of changing laws and rules. Everybody wants, pro bono work is still the best. The price is right.
That's why I say when I'm doing interviews, I love interviewing attorneys because I get free legal advice.
Yes.
If I have somebody in this chair, I'm not paying them to be here, and I can get everything I want out of them. I need to know this about my wills, trusts, and estates, and
Yes.
these real estate matters, and and figure it all out. So transferring away from the nonprofit side, on the professional side, you have some interest in some businesses as well.
Yeah.
So talk about what businesses you're involved in right now.
So currently, I am partners with one of my best friends in Narcissus Flowers.
Okay.
So we have Narcissus Flowers and we have Muller's Historic in Spring Lake, and we're the biggest event florist in Monmouth and Ocean County. And I have nothing to do with that. And my buddy does all the work because I can't even tell you, I can barely match my clothing, which is
I
also
will tell you,
debatable.
I've ordered from them and had flowers delivered. When I'm doing stuff and sending flowers to Southern Monmouth, you guys, Narcissus is the absolute best when it comes to
Thank you. I am partners in a restaurant down in Toms River, Joe Bella's. It's a Italian restaurant. Used to be the old Rivoli's, which if anybody ever watched the Jersey Shore, Jim Tan and Laundry, they would have seen Snooki and Jay Wow at the old Rivoli's. So we have that building now. We're an Italian restaurant there.
So there's a bar there, I'm assuming.
There is a bar.
There were shenanigans going on.
I can't speak to the shenanigans because this is a family podcast. I can tell you though that we do have a bar, and it was a Cuban restaurant for a minute. I'm sure you're going to get to that, but it's now a Italian restaurant, and my partner Joe Palmisano, he does a great job. And then I am in the process of finishing the opening process for a detox and rehab facility for dependency issues in Toms River. It's a 51-bed inpatient inpatient facility that will, there's such a need in our communities. We have such problems with addiction. And we don't have a lot of places to go for recovery services. And most folks have to leave the area if they want to get high quality services. So we've been working on this project for the better part of 7 years.
Wow.
But we're in the home stretch. We should be opening that in the next couple of months.
So what causes a 7-year delay? What causes a project to go for 7 years, especially one that seems to be so beneficial to the greater good?
Well, it's ironic because I joke that I could have opened 6 dispensaries in the time that we're trying to open one detox facility.
Right.
It's incredibly stringent around licensure. Like, look, I have a medical director, there's a nursing director, so it's a clinical practice.
Right.
So when I tell you that the book of standard operating procedures is like yay big,
Okay.
and it's gone through 400 revisions. And we threw a global pandemic in the middle.
Got it.
And we built a building from scratch.
Okay.
So building. I'm sure you've had somebody on at some point here who's talked about how not friendly necessarily New Jersey is to help people open new facilities. So it's just been a very long process. The state has turned over folks many times.
Right.
And so it's been a process. But I think on the other hand, I think if folks were able to open that kind of a facility in 6 months, I would question the efficacy of that particular facility. So I think that's probably a good thing in some
But
ways.
there's nothing like that locally, and so what inspired you to get involved in that project specifically?
Somebody that I trust came to me a number of years ago, who's my partner on it. He has had family that has struggled with this issue. I've done work with local organizations like Hope Sheds Light and Preferred Behavioral, a number of different organizations that you realize the size of the need. I would also tell you that in a perfect world, from a philanthropic standpoint and from a nonprofit standpoint, in a perfect world, we would like the work that we do in the for-profit end to represent or to tie meaningfully in the work that we do in the nonprofit end. And clearly this makes sense. I mean, we work with both the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas system and the Hackensack Meridian system. We work with visiting nurses, so we've done work with all the local medical professionals, and so this is a natural synergy.
Okay.
I also felt good that this was not going to be what we call like a bag and tag type facility where we send people back out with a plastic bag of their things and say we'll see you in 3 months. Right? Like maybe. This is like we're trying to help folks change their way of life and to be able to be successful.
Long-term type facility.
Yeah, and we'll have access to wraparound services. Kind of work with kind of navigators to help to have folks be able to help folks get to the next stage of their lives. There's nothing worse in that world than going back into the exact same circumstances you were in. You're probably going to replicate those behaviors again.
Sure.
So we want to be able to help folks not replicate those behaviors again and do better for themselves and their families.
I love that. Sounds like a great project. I can't wait for it to open. You took the wind out of my sails about the restaurant stuff by playing the violin a little bit. So I'm going to skip over Gordon Ramsay. Google, look that up. Jeremy Grunin, Gordon Ramsay. Find the photo.
Wait, I just have to say.
All right.
So it was a Cuban restaurant which we opened in like 2018. I'll tell you that the good news, it's a good news, bad news thing, right? The good news is Gordon Ramsay came and did a show at our restaurant called 24 Hours to Hell and Back. The bad news is our restaurant was so bad at that point that Gordon Ramsay came to our restaurant to do a show and try to turn us around, which might have happened. Although then, but that show aired in January of 2020.
Oh,
the rest is history. Now we're a really good Italian restaurant.
But look at where you are today, right? You have
Exactly.
a very successful Italian restaurant, very
That's
good
right.
food down in Toms River if you ever get down that way to Joe Bella's. So you can't do what you do by yourself. You've talked about having so many different people on the profitability side. You have an entire team on the foundation side. So what are you doing to continue to develop your team, make your team better, to support the community at large? And what's next for you?
So I have 4 folks that work for me and with me. I should say with me because I mostly work for them. And they've been with me 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, and 2.5 years.
Okay.
So we don't we like to think that we treat everybody like we work together in a lot of ways. We've just expanded out our board. So typically as a family foundation, you would have a board that's comprised of your own family. And that's been that way forever. But the issue with that is that you're then making decisions to a large extent for community with folks that have had primarily the same lived experiences, right? Like family, like yes, you may have grown up in a different house, but you're you have typically a pretty homogeneous background. What we've done in the last couple of years is we've expanded our board out to include community members. So we now have 6 community members. They're all nonprofit professionals that work in nonprofit and education throughout. Actually, one of them's in California. The rest are in Monmouth and Ocean County, and they bring a very different set of kind of views and set of outlooks on the world, and really add to robust conversation and help us to be able to do our work better. We don't do anything though in a vacuum. Everything we do is with community kind of telling us where they need the work done, and how we can help and how we can better enable them to do their work. So we want to continue down that road, but I will also say that we've kind of looked at the 2 things that we've been really kind of noodling around and trying to do better with is helping build better relationships between our nonprofit communities and our legislative folks, our public sector. How do we connect nonprofits better to our legislators? And the second thing is, how do we build shared services for nonprofits? Just like small business folks, one of the biggest expenses is around healthcare, right? Healthcare for your team. Nonprofits typically run on small budgets, and they don't typically offer healthcare. How do we build the ability for nonprofits to pool together to be able to share healthcare costs and build into a common network? How do we help nonprofits get access to lawyers and legal services, cybersecurity? How do we help them get access to better marketing services, CFO services? A lot of things that nonprofits don't necessarily have the dollars to do.
Right.
But how can we help them build critical mass of enough folks working together so that we can get those things at a cost that folks could deal with and build other funders into the network? So we're trying to do that work to help as part of our collective impact piece.
That sounds like a tremendous lift. Like as I'm spinning this around in my head right now, we have a lot of egos also that are involved in that space. But it sounds like if you're creating the New Jersey State Community Leaders Association to force everybody into a room and lock the door until we can get some shared services, it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of savings available, but a tremendous amount of expertise on the sideline that's not being utilized.
I think what's beautiful about the nonprofit community, especially in Monmouth and Ocean County, is they really do want to work together and they do want to support each other. So I think that there's an understanding of we want to do this together. I think we're also very blessed to have legislators that work together across the aisles. In COVID, I could point to a number of different examples of where we have a Democratic state senator working with a group of Republican county commissioners and mayors on all sides of the aisle to work on getting COVID testing for folks, and it's really great to see how we work together in these 2 counties, and I think it'll just take a lot of that.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great conversation. Wanted to dive deeper on some of the other fun stuff, but I think we got a lot out of it, and I can't wait to share this episode because I think there's so many of us in the community that want to do more, don't know how to do more, and don't realize how big this needs to be in order to get to a homeostasis for those that have limited resources. So again, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.